Hey everybody, welcome back to Breakfast with Bob. My name is Bob Babbitt, and we are at Clash Endurance Miami, a woman who I have known for many, many years, but we have never chatted on Breakfast with Bob. Dede Griesbauer joins us. How you doing, Dede?
It was a total mic drop when I got your email, Bob. I was like, I'm finally going to be on Breakfast with Bob. I can call it a career now.
I love it. And you, how long have you been in this career? I hate to say 51?
Yeah, 51 and a half.
And ranked number 94 in the world.
Yeah.
You're still racing at a great level. In 2021, 10th at Ironman Cozumel, 5th at Ironman Lake Placid, 10th at Ironman Texas. You're still doing it.
I'm still doing it. I'm doing it without maybe necessarily as much consistency and certainly not as much frequency as I used to. The body just takes longer to, I think, recover between races, and I'm a bit more particular about where I want to race.
Right.
It's hard to find races that excite you anymore. You know, you've been around the block so many times that I look at some race lists and I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I can go back there again. So yeah, I don't race with the same frequency. And the women are just getting faster, so it's harder and harder to compete. And I, of course, as I said, I'm getting older, but I'm still out there. I still love it. Like, I'm not ashamed to say I love what I do, and I'm not going to stop doing it until I stop loving it.
You know, when you go from racing to commentating, right? And you've been phenomenal doing the Ironman shows and so much fun. But the insight that you can bring, because you've seen it all. I mean, anything that happens out there, you've been part of that. How much fun is that? Because you can share what you went through and how that relates to what you're seeing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the one thing I have going for me at age 51 is there are very few things that can happen out on a race course that haven't happened to me already. Like the experience, and particularly when you get to the longer distances, the full distances, the Ironman, the Ultraman, that experience definitely, you know, helps you keep your headspace calm. Like, oh, I've been through this before. This has happened to me before. You're going to be just fine. So that part of it, like, is great. Yeah, I can bring those insights. But the other thing that I didn't realize in doing the commentary, it's made me a smarter racer because I get to sit and be a student.
That's a great point.
I get to sit and be a student of all of these, like, the world's best, right? I mean, we're calling races and I am watching the world's best execute at their craft. And it makes me smarter because I sit there and I study it. And I get to witness it firsthand. And so it's in a lot of ways, it's made me a smarter athlete.
You know what's funny about that? I remember Greg Welch was going to be a favorite for 1993 Ironman and World Championships, and he crashed and ended up being part of the NBC team and watching the race.
Yes.
And he said he learned so much from just how calm watching Mark Allen win and watching how calm he was when Paulie Q was ahead of him. And then he said that made a huge difference in him winning the world title the following year. Yeah,
you hear a lot of athletes now who maybe have been superstars at the 70.3 and they're thinking about coming up to Ironman, you know, someone like a Holly Lawrence or something, will come out to Kona, represent their sponsors. Yes, I'm just out here doing some stuff for my sponsors.
Research.
But I'm also studying the race. I'm training on the course. I'm seeing what the vibe is on race day. Yes. And I think you really, really do learn a lot. So if you can't get that firsthand experience, at least you can be there to observe it. And as a commentator, I've gotten to do that for the past several years, and it's been great.
As someone who's been at that top end of the sport, right? With all these, where was I putting that down there? The 3-time Ironman champion. I mean, you go back 1996. You watch Ironman on TV. In '97, you did Vineman. Yeah, right. It's like I think I could do that.
Well, I was in business school and I was studying for finals, and I should have been studying for finals, and I was like, I just couldn't do it anymore. And I happened to turn on the TV and just happened to see the Ironman World Championship on television. And it happened to be the year that Karen Smyers chased down Paula Newby-Fraser.
Also 95.
And so it was a very dramatic finish. And I just sat there, my jaw hit the floor, and I was like, I have got to do this.
Yes.
And so got through finals and everything else. I had one semester left of business school, and I started asking friends, you know, not much internet back in those days, I hate to say. Yeah. So to find a race and to figure out how to train for it and what to do. But I saw it on television, and I thought, you know, I was a collegiate swimmer. I had run my first marathon when I was in business school. The summer before business school, I'd ridden my bike across the country with a boy I was trying to impress at the time. Yeah. Unfortunately, we broke up in Montana, but it was.
Wait, you broke up in Montana?
Oh, he was dreadful.
What, did you start from east to west?
No, we went west to east.
Oh, so you broke up early. You broke up before you got to Nebraska.
We weren't compatible pace-wise.
Oh, you were dropping. He couldn't keep up. So he's like, listen, you were good through Montana, but I think I'm good the rest of the way. I think there's about 48 states that I can do without you.
We did finish the trip. We just rode somewhat separately. We'd meet up for lunch to make sure the other one wasn't, dead on the side of the road.
But there you go. So you would just like leave him each morning, drop him like a stone.
Yeah. But we did make it back to the East Coast, and so I was like, I swam. I know how to ride a bike. By the way, I made it all the way across the country and never had a flat tire.
That's amazing.
And I had run my first marathon, so I was like, I want to try this. But when I did it, I had no intention that this was going to be a career.
Right.
I just wanted to be a one and done. And I did Vineman in 97, right after I graduated from business school, because I had 3 months off before I had to start my job on Wall Street, and I didn't have any more money because I had just paid for business school, and I didn't really want to travel after the bike trip. So I was like, I'm just going to train as hard as I can and get as fit as I can and do this race. And it was extraordinary. I think I came in third. Yeah. And it was a great experience, but I went to work. That was it. I went to work, and I was living in Manhattan, and I was still running. I would run in Central Park before work, and I swam with the New York Athletic Club. Yeah. And so I was keeping active. And it wasn't until a few years later I had met my husband, and we had been married, and I was like, I want to try one more Ironman. I want to train a little bit.
Famous last words.
I want to train a little bit harder. I want to race a little bit smarter now that I've done one. And of course I didn't train any harder, and I didn't race any smarter. But I raced Ironman Florida in 2002, and I won the age group race and qualified for Kona. And I just remember thinking, well, we have to go to Kona,
of
right?
Course.
Like, what else would you do? But I thought, if I go to Kona in the condition that I'm in, I'll die. Like, I was not very well prepared. Yeah. I was leaning hard on 20 years of competitive swimming and that aerobic engine, but I was like, I can't go into those conditions. Like, I mean, look at what happened to Paula Newby Fraser. Like, I can't go do that.
I better get a real bike. I better start training.
Well, and that was the thing. It was very overwhelming, as it would be for anybody getting into the sport. There's so much money to spend, right? Do you hire a coach? Do you buy a fancier bike? I lived in Boston. Do I get one of these smart trainer things? Like, what do I do? And of course, a Wall Street contact was like, had been to Kona, right? Had been to the race to watch. So I asked him, and he's like, I'll tell you everything you want to know about Kona. He's like, but living in Boston, he's like, you have the greatest resource on Kona, living in your own backyard.
Her name is Karen Smyers.
He's like, you need to pick up the phone and call Karen Smyers. And I was like, oh.
Like, she's going to talk to me.
I was like, I used some expletives. I was like, oh, come on. I was like, yeah. And when I'm done talking to Karen, I'm like, can you call Tiger? Because I need some help with my chipping and putting, right?
Exactly.
Like, there was, she was way up here on this
course.
pedestal, and I was like, there's no way. I mustered up the courage to email her, and she did email me back and offered to be my coach. And what a great mentor. Like, I stepped in it backwards, Bob.
Wait, so you get the woman who won the race you were watching.
Yes.
Yeah, as to be your coach.
To be my
mentor.
coach. And I'm dumb as a stone. Like, I know nothing. Right. I have a great engine, and I think she was sort of salivating a little bit. She's like, this girl doesn't know the engine that she's got.
Yep.
And so I just did everything that Karen, I would go out and ride with Karen. When she shifted, I shifted. Like, I would just try to emulate everything that she did. And I learned so much perspective, like her humility, her humor, everything. I wanted to be Karen. I still want to be Karen.
Here's my favorite Karen Smyers stories, and I've got a few.
It involves beer.
Yeah, it does. It totally does. So, we started our foundation for Jim McLaren.
Sure.
He was a guy who lost a leg, then became a quadriplegic. So anyways, at this point, he's an amputee. And they're at a race, and they've finished the race, and Jim is thirsty, and Karen's got a water bottle. And he said, hey, Karen, can I take a sip of your water bottle? Is that electrolytes? She goes, yeah, it's electrolytes. And he goes and takes a sip. He goes, that's beer. And she goes, yeah, it's electrolytes. And he goes, I've been sober for 10 years.
Whoopsie daisy.
Is that Karen?
Yeah, it's pretty typical Karen. Yeah.
The other thing with Karen is she was always, because she came from the short distance.
Yep.
She always believed in quality rather than quantity.
Sure.
She didn't, and I bet she transferred that to you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at the time, especially since living in Boston, it's hard to be training big volumes for a lot of the year because the weather's just so lousy. So I don't think I ever really topped even 20 hours of training with her.
Yes.
And
you
now,
don't need to.
I do now.
Do you find yourself training more now?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Just because it takes the body longer to warm up?
No, not necessarily. I think the distances that I'm racing.
Yes. Because you're doing Ultraman.
The distances that I'm racing, and I think I really have found my specialty in Ironman and Ultraman.
Yep.
I think this weekend is going to be a great race experience for me. I can't say that the distance necessarily suits me physiologically So the shorter stuff, I used to race a lot of the shorter stuff, non-draft Olympic.
Right.
When I was coached by Karen, there was a lot more non-draft Olympic race opportunities available. I would race far fewer Ironmans. I think back in the day, there weren't many people racing more than 1, maybe 2 Ironmans in a year. Right now they're racing 6 and 7, and I'm like, how do you do that too? Like, I don't know, but. So I think, yes, my volumes have picked up. I think with my coach now, Julie Dibbins, we have a great combination of, we do a lot of intensity, but we also do a lot of volume, and I'm holding up, and it's still working.
So I saw you, at Ultraman, Florida.
Yes.
Where you broke the world record?
Yes.
You broke the world record. I met Florida, and that was going to lead into Kona in November of that same year.
Sure.
Was that 2020?
That was 2020. Yeah. I was one of the few athletes that can say I raced in 2020.
Yeah, exactly. And when the plan was to do basically 2 Ultramans the same year. Doing 2 Ironmans is a lot.
Yeah.
Doing 2 Ultramans. And so at the end of the day, it was probably good.
Yes.
You think, for you physically, that it was delayed?
I think so. I think it's enabled me to study the distance a little bit, obviously virtually, because I haven't raced another Ultraman since, but I did a 52K trail race to try, again, the nutrition it's an
so
eating
different.
competition.
It
Just
is.
like Ironman, it's a contest in eating. How much can you eat to keep yourself going?
Right.
Who can slow down the least?
And who's got the best crew?
Yes.
The part about Ultraman, especially in Kona, because the heat, the wind, when you're done at the end of the day, you don't want to be thinking.
Yep.
You want your team to go, okay, we're going to get you in your Normatex, we're going to get you iced, we're going to get here's your drink, start drinking now.
Yep.
All of that.
I remember a story. I'm very good friends with Hillary Biscay, who I couldn't tell you the year she won Ultraman, but she was what drew me into Ultraman because she had gone and done it. And I was just like, I've got to try that one day. She tells a story that, your crew looks after you. Literally, you barely breathe on your own. Your crew is doing everything for you. Morning after the race, she's lying in bed, literally unable to remove herself from bed, and she yells out to somebody in the other room. She's like, "Can somebody get me a cup of coffee?" And they're like, "Screw you, we've done enough.
The race is over.
We're done with you." Exactly.
In fact, you should go out and get us coffee.
Exactly.
We've been schlepping for you for 3 days.
Exactly.
It's your turn.
And it's hard to crew. Like, it's emotionally exhausting.
Especially when your athlete is losing it. And the thing about that course is, for our viewers, 10K swim, where the Ironman starts, and you basically swim to the Sheridan. Then you ride 90 miles and gain like 7,000 feet up to
Volcano.
the volcano, and it's cold up there.
Yeah.
Right? That night it gets, into the 20s and 30s. Yeah. It's cold. And then the next day is a 171-mile ride, and it starts with like a 17-mile downhill, and it's cold. Right.
Yep.
And your crew has to go to town. They can't be crewing you there.
Yep.
And there's always rain.
Yeah.
Through the Hilo side.
Sure.
And then you finish in, Javi. And then the next day, you run 52 miles back from Javi.
That's what got me, right? I have never, in all of my years of going to Hawaii, I've gone for training camps, I've gone to race there a number of times. I've never been to the other side of the island. I've never been there.
The Red Road is unbelievable. I hope you get to ride it this year.
I literally have never, ever been there. But what got me about Ultraman is that having done Ironman Hawaii so many times, it's a long bike ride back from Hawaii.
And to
imagine running, I was like, how is that even possible?
That's
even now, I really struggle. Having done the distance, yes, but visualizing that run point to point all the way back from Hawaii, I just can't wrap my head around it. But I'm going to have to pretty soon.
Yes, you are. And the thing that impressed me was I remember Rob Gray, or one of the guys who won, is they started right from the beginning at Hawaii. They ran
walk.
10 minutes and walked a minute. 10 minutes, walked a minute. From the very beginning. So there were guys who were like 10 minutes ahead who came back to him.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It was a strategy we actually considered. I found it disrupted my run. I know, surprising. For a runner like me, it disrupted my run rhythm. I'm not the world's best runner.
Right.
But what we did was we ran for as long as I basically could, and when it became very difficult, then we adopted the run walk. Right. And so I ran, I think, the first probably 35 miles.
Right, and then you 15.
And then and then I was doing a sort of a 10 and 1 type similar thing. So I don't know if that was right or wrong, but my crew was pretty key. Yeah.
So in all your years of racing, have you won a world title?
Well, I won the 12-hour time trial world championship.
That counts.
In Borrego Springs.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if I don't know if that counts.
But not in triathlon.
Not in triathlon.
So the Ultraman World Championship, it's a title.
It's a title. I mean, but I'm not, there's a lot of women that are going to be looking for that same title.
I think I heard that Leanda Cave might be there.
Leanda Cave is planning to be there. She still has to qualify.
Yeah, she has to go do one.
So she's going to, my understanding is that she's...
Arizona?
No, because Arizona's this weekend. She's doing Canada.
Okay, that's the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, doing 2 ultras in the same. Yeah.
And the time frame between the two is, I think Canada's in July or August, so it's not a lot of time. But again, the standard to qualify, you just have to complete. So it can be 3 long training days essentially. But
it's still a freaking lot of miles.
Oh, it's a long way.
What was the toughest part of that when you did Florida?
It's got to be, for me, it's got to be the run. Yeah. I've heard people say they think each day gets easier, and I was like, I don't really understand that.
No,
but I think you're so tired by the time you even start the run and so depleted. And again, the nutrition is such a critical component that I think I struggled the most on day 3. Plus, the night, I didn't know about world records for this event. I just thought there's just a bunch of nut jobs that do this. Like, they don't actually track these people.
Yeah,
they lock them up. But
I thought it was people in witness protection, to be honest with you.
The night before day 3, I sat down with Julie and she said, if you run whatever the time was, and it was a manageable time, tomorrow, she's like, you'll break the world record for Ultraman. And I looked at her like she shot my dog. I was like, why on earth would you tell me that? Like, I can't handle that kind of pressure with running, like, And she's like, I just want you to know that so that when it gets hard out there, you have something that you're running for,
That's
right?
A great point.
And so it was in the back of my mind. That's certainly not why I signed up. No. Again, I didn't even know that they kept records of such things, but it was a great event. I absolutely loved it.
The team does a great job.
The team that organizes it, and then my team, and sharing that experience with your squad. I literally made the promise to myself at the start of that race. I'm like, don't be a brat. They're here for you. Don't be a brat. And so I tried to keep a sense of humor.
Kind, happy,
exactly.
Smiley. Yeah.
When they're forcing food down your throat and you want to punch them in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
You smile and say thank you for your help, right? And I only lost it twice on day 3, both within the last 10K. I think we weren't quite to 10K to go, and someone said you have about 10K to go, and the words about and 10K. Don't say that to me.
You better tell me exactly.
Exactly.
It's 6.3.
Exactly. And even 10K at that pace is still, I'm like, I have to run for almost an hour still. So shut your mouth, because that's a long way to go. So I tried to keep it together for the most part, but the crew is essential.
And they understand that. The fact that you didn't lose it until that last, I've seen people lose it, early. When they come out of the water, they're pissed.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it depends on the athlete as well. Yeah. I mean, I think when we came out of the water, I think Julie was a little pissed. She was my kayak escort. And we had a storm blow through, and it was like the sinking of the Titanic out there. I mean, she was literally as far as you are from me, and I couldn't see her.
Oh, my God.
And when I came in on the end of day 1, the first thing I asked race organizers, I was like, did everybody make it out of the swim?
Yeah, that swim was scary.
And all but one did, and the only reason the one didn't is that her boat sank. So you have to have an escort, and the boat sank, so they had to pull them both in.
That is hilarious.
It was great.
Oh, my God. So with everything, I'm looking at Kona stuff. 17th in Kona 05, 32nd, then 7th, 10th, 9th, 37th, 22nd. I mean, you've been there a bunch.
Yeah, I've been there a fair amount.
When you look at just and you get to cover the top pros with the Ironman shows, what has changed? How has it changed, especially at that Ironman distance?
I just think the scale of the event has changed. I remember the first time I went to Kona as an age grouper, I had shipped my bike FedEx because I don't know why I did that, but I took it down to the guys in my mailroom along with a case of beer, and I'm like, can you guys pack this up and send it to this bike shop in Hawaii for me? They're like, sure. Bike shop calls me. They're like, there's a quarter-size puncture hole in your down tube. And first thing I said is, what's a down tube?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But it rendered the bike, I couldn't ride it because it was, and so they're like, just come on out. We'll take care of you. We'll figure it out. And I got to Kona, and for the 5-6 days leading into the race, I literally sat outside the bike shop and cried because I couldn't find a bike. Right? now you show up in Kona and you have any kind of equipment failure, you raise your hand and you're like, can somebody help me please? And
here, I've got a spare
17 different bike company
Cervelo
and exactly, right? There's bikes everywhere, there's equipment everywhere, there's industry representatives from everywhere. And they got you covered, right? They absolutely have you covered. But back in the day, it just wasn't like that. So it was a panic attack to find a bike to ride, if you can believe it. So the scale of the event has gotten so monstrous.
Right.
Obviously, the level of competition and the fact that people get faster and faster. I remember when Karen won back in 95, I think she ran 3:07.
Yeah.
3:07 is kind of a pedestrian run split off the bike now. It's not bad, but it's not superhuman.
But if you're not running 250s, forget it.
Yeah, you got to be running near 250, certainly sub 3 hours, depending on how you swim and bike.
Right.
And so just the level of competition is amazing. But
really
I've been around a while, so.
So this
things are bound to change.
The sport is really in a good place right now with everything the PTO is doing, everything from the Clash group, the Super League, and there's so many great options. A couples event last weekend, so much cool stuff.
Yeah.
You're coming here, and this is a total cocktail weenie for you. This is like you're going to finish this, or you need to warm up 5 hours before the thing starts.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm going to hit my stride sometime, 7 o'clock that night.
But racing on the racetrack, this will be the first time you've done something like this.
Oh, yeah, and that's part of what drew me to this. I think I said that this distance isn't exactly in my wheelhouse, physiologically speaking. I tend to wake up around 4 or 5 hours into a training session. So this is going to be long done and dusted by the time that happens. And again, the nature of the course with the infield and some of the turns, I'm going to preview the course this afternoon. I'm very excited. Just driving in here today, I was all wide-eyed and very excited.
This is so cool.
So, yeah, it's not necessarily like the race that I picked on the calendar, I'm going to be great there. I'm going to be fantastic there. No, but like I said, it's not often in a nearly 20-year racing career that you have a new experience. Right. And to race a venue like this, and I've watched it, I've watched the commentary, I've studied it. It just seems so gosh darn exciting. So
fun.
I'm really excited to have a new experience. And then, of course, it's good to just get your first race under your belt and see where you're at, march and move on.
I was interviewing a woman from Denmark yesterday who's 20.
I think my T-shirt's older than that. I'm not even joking.
I know.
I'm not even joking. I've had conversations with, I train with Justin and Jeannie Metzler, and Justin's parents have recently moved to Boulder, and they were out on pool deck one day for a swim, and I was kind of looking at them, and at the end of the swim, I looked at Justin, and I was like, how old are your parents? And he told me, I was like, I shouldn't have asked that question. They're about 3 years older than I am. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But
it's so fun.
I never in a million years thought when I quit my job in 2005 that we thought it would be for a year or two. Yeah. And it really just took off. And I think my motivation for racing has certainly changed. And I make no apologies for still being here. I came in 5th at Ironman Lake Placid. My performance at Cozumel, I was 10th, which isn't anything to get excited about, but that's the fastest time I've ever gone in an Ironman.
Exactly.
Ever.
You're getting better.
I'm getting faster. And I went a bike course time in Cozumel that only Daniela Reeve has biked faster ever.
See? Look at
so
that.
I still am getting better in certain aspects. Putting it all together in one package is a challenge, but I'm enjoying it, and I beat 25-year-olds, and I get to wag my finger a little bit.
my favorite thing in the world is when we're doing a race, and us age groupers have our ages on our calves.
Oh, sure,
right?
Sure, yeah.
So going by a couple guys, 'cause I never go by anybody on the run, but I go by a couple guys on the bike whose ages add up to less than mine.
Yeah.
That's like a good day.
Oh, sure.
Right? Yeah.
I was
30-year-olds. Boom, done.
I was getting ready to start the race in Lake Placid last summer, and it's pouring with rain. And Mike Riley's there, of course, on the mic, and he's getting everyone excited and trying to keep everybody calm, as he always does. And I'm about to get in and do a little swim warm-up, and he's like, Dede. And I walked over. He's like, what are you doing here? I have my cap and goggles and wetsuit on, and I was like, I'm racing.
Yeah,
and he looks at me, he's like, why?
Because we can.
And I literally was like, why did you ask me that? And for the whole day in the back of my mind, I was like, why are you here? Why are you here? I came in 5th. I've raced Lake Placid. That's the 3rd time I've raced Lake Placid. Fastest time on the course.
Right.
And so I walked up to him after I finished. I'm hobbling over to get myself a beer. And I was like, hey, Mike, He's like, great job out there. I was like, you asked me this morning what I'm doing here? I'm like, I just came in 5th, beat a whole bunch of women less than half my age. Mic drop.
I love that. Well, you'll be doing the same thing this week.
We'll see about that. But it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited to be here.
Love it, Dede. Such a pleasure to get the chat.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. It's, like I said, it's been a bucket list item for a lot of years.
It's a treat.
Thanks.
Treat for both. A treat for me, especially. Again, Breakfast with Bob, and appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Hold on. We're going to be back in just a little bit.